Welcome to the Wilshire Gun Podcast.
What's going on, guys? Back at it with another podcast. Mixing it up this time a little bit. We got Will up here instead of normally Chase, but there is a good reason for it. Will is our training director up here at Wilshire Gun. Does all of our cool guy stuff, make people better. So I'm going to give it to him for just a little bit. I'm going to let him introduce himself.
I'm Will Andrews. I've been in the gun business since 1981. I've been in the range business since 88 or 89. It was early enough in world history that no one bothered to write that stuff down. I'm a new hire at Wilshire. I've been here for 4 years and a couple of months. Last gig only lasted 29 years, so I'm going to be the eternal new hire here. It's never going to feel as homey as maybe other places. Been at this a long time. I have primarily taught for a living since 2002, 2003. So I don't know if I'm getting any good at it yet, but I have way more experience than most of them out there.
I don't know. So, I mean, coming into the end of the year, we definitely like to see more people pick up training, especially like Chase and I have been kind of harping on that, the 2020 rush. A bunch of people bought guns.
Yep.
Some more familiar than others. And it's one of those deals where, we're trying our best to reach out and explain the importance and the necessity of the training. Tell me what you think about all that.
Well, I think if I go down to the corner store and buy a piano, I'm still not a musician. I think lots of people have gone out and bought guns, put them in the dresser drawer, patted themselves on the back, and declared themselves ready and capable, and nothing could be farther from the truth. It's just a tool. You really have to know how to use the tool. If for no other reason, you have to know how to use the tool well enough so you don't hurt yourself by accident.
Sure.
I think every new gun owner probably should get some serious training from somewhere. I like to think they'll come to me and come to Wilshire Gun, but there's other training out there.
Sure. So what kind of training should somebody that's new like that seek out? Where should I start? I just bought my first Glock. I'm ready to be a gunfighter. Where's step one?
You're going to force me into one of my big rants. Soapbox is on its way.
All right.
I talk a lot about the differences between institutional and commercial training.
Sure.
Institutional training would be military or law enforcement.
Okay.
The primary emphasis of institutional training is we're going to take a very large group of people, we're going to shove them into a class, we're going to push them out on the range with the goal of every person in that large group hit some ambiguous minimum skill level that the institution has set.
Okay.
We get to check the box on the paperwork and we send them off to learn to talk on the radio or something else. Commercial training should be everything that's not. Commercial training should be based on the theory of we're going to push each individual to the best they can be. Institutional training, the goal is a minimum standard. Mm-hmm. Commercial training, the goal should be simply perfection for everyone there.
Okay. So let me ask kind of the difference in that. Would somebody with no shooting experience benefit from either? Or should they seek one over the other?
Quite often people with no shooting experience that end up in an institutional environment are simply left behind.
Okay.
They don't have the understanding to start where the institution starts, and they start out behind and they very rarely catch up. Commercial training is prepared to deal with that.
Gotcha.
We can start at nothing and we can push you as far as you're willing to go.
Okay. So institutional training, would that be more your bigger instructors, shooting academies? How does that kind of work out?
I always use military and law enforcement as the example of that.
Right.
But you bet, the big academies, mm-hmm. The big names you see advertised in all the magazines, the big names that will give you a Rolex watch if you buy a big membership, mm-hmm. They're absolute straight up institutional training.
So you're kind of advocating that somebody should avoid something like that and look something for more of a personal experience?
I think if their goal is an ambiguous minimum ability to shoot, that's exactly where they ought to be.
Okay.
If they want to get good at this stuff, they should come to me.
Okay. Shameless plug. So give me a little bit about why our training falls more into that commercial standards and that institutional standard. Tell us a little bit about it.
I run very small class sizes.
Okay.
Every class has a definite plan, an outline, generally even a PowerPoint. It is a structured, formal class.
Okay.
But I never allow the structure to override the greater purpose of training shooters. So if I have 5 shooters on the line of various skill level, I might be running 3 separate shooting drills across 5 shooters at the same time. Jogging up and down the line, tuning this shooter on this fundamental, tuning that shooter on that fundamental, trying to push each individual, not a group as a whole.
Gotcha. So it's a very personalized lessons plan, even though it's a structured, more rigid class.
Absolutely.
If that makes sense. Okay. So I'm a new shooter. I'm scrolling down the Wilshire Gun website. Which ones do I click on first?
Wow. I'm going to suggest that you click on the ones, if you're a brand new shooter, brand new gun owner, click on the ones that have the word fundamentals in the class title first.
Okay.
That's where we're going to build the foundation that the rest of the structure is going to be built on.
Okay.
One of my heroes, Tom Givens, he's out of Florida now. Tom will tell you that there's no such thing as an advanced shooting skill. An advanced shooting skill is simply a fundamental skill executed well. So we got to start with the fundamentals in the beginning, and we just polish them better and better throughout.
Okay. So let's say I got a little bit of shooting under my belt. I'm new to the Wilshire Gun training regimen, and I see a class, 1, 2, 3. Mm-hmm. Do I have to take 1? Can I take 2?
You can jump into 2.
What about 3? Can I go straight to 3?
We'll talk about it one-on-one.
So really, it's probably wouldn't hurt you to take 1, 2. I mean, they're not super expensive. They don't take a lot of time.
Right.
More shooting is always better.
Right.
A little bit of practice. Okay. So we're kind of in there. So obviously you have a lot of personal sessions with these shooters, and you're taking them very personally. You have any, I don't know, like fun stories or anything?
A couple of 3 years ago, I did a gun fit for a lady. Her husband attended, wanted to sit back and watch. Mm-hmm. So during a gun fit, I'm trying to help her pick out the gun that might be right for her. In this case, it was a handgun. Mm-hmm. Immediately, based on hand size and some parameters she gave me, there's a lot of guns that you can discount entirely, so we get down to a few that are viable options. And I don't know how to teach her to assess the differences between these viable options unless she can shoot pretty well.
Makes sense, yeah.
Right? So I coach her up as a shooter a little bit, and we start assessing these handguns for her by shooting 1-inch squares.
Okay.
She makes a choice. I don't remember what it was. That's not important. Send them on their way. A week later, husband's in here for a personal lesson. And when I greet him, the first thing he says is, "You had my wife shooting 1-inch squares." I said, "Yeah." He says, "I can't shoot 1-inch squares. Teach me how to do that."
That's one of that person. When did you teach him to shoot 1-inch squares?
I taught him to shoot 1-inch squares.
That's good.
And guess what the magic of shooting 1-inch squares is?
What's that?
Fundamentals.
Polishing fundamentals.
Yep.
Man. Okay. So what else is going on in the training world? What else is new? What's fast, exciting?
Well, I know what excites me.
Okay.
I tend to be a little out of sync with the rest of the universe, but this excites me. We're going to talk about it.
All right.
I'm bringing back the civilian pepper spray classes for November.
That'd be cool.
It's a great class. A lot of people don't get it, so we're going to talk about it. Pepper spray is a pretty simple device. It's an aerosol can.
Sure.
Right? Yeah, I can tell you how to run an aerosol can in 15 seconds. That's not the important part of this class. When we send people we worry out into the universe to go shopping for a road trip or whatever, we all tell them, keep your head up, pay attention, maintain that situational awareness. No one knows what that means. Lots of people can keep their head up, be paying attention, and watch bad stuff happen to them because they didn't know what they were watching for.
Makes sense.
The pepper spray class is primarily that cerebral self-defense class of what to watch for, what body language worries us, what situations we're looking out for, and then we spray each other with inert pepper spray. Maybe the biggest selling point of this class is you come to class, you get to squirt me in the face.
With real stuff?
No.
Oh.
No. I'll only go so far for the art.
So definitely, I mean, that definitely sounds like a viable class. That's one of the less, I guess you could call it one of the less sexy pillars of,
Absolutely.
self-defense and all this other stuff.
Absolutely.
Like I said, kind of joking earlier, I'm ready to be a gunfighter, all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But if you don't know what's going on, you don't really make it to the gunfight portion.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. So in my own mind, I divide all the training stuff into two rough categories. Mm-hmm. There's the fun stuff and there's the important stuff. Fun stuff is shooting guns.
Yeah.
Squirting Will with the inert pepper spray. Some of the training I've done in the past, hitting people with sticks, flailing on people with training knives, kicking them in the groin. That stuff's fun.
Yeah.
It's just not very important. If we get the important stuff really worked into our personalities and pay attention to what's going on, we will never need any of the fun stuff. So the pepper spray class is mostly that important stuff, avoidance, with some fun stuff.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Definitely something to think about, for sure.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people don't really take that into consideration. And so it definitely sounds like that pepper spray class that's always one of the best things. Like when I go to any kind of training or class or whatever instructor, if he says something and I do it and then I'm like, man, I never thought about it. That is really the reason you train. I mean, like you can practice shooting. Mm-hmm. You can watch a 15-minute YouTube video, learn out how to grip and figure it out with just enough practice, right?
Yeah.
But
allegedly.
In a very simple, flat world. But really the benefits of that training is getting the perspectives of the individuals that do things different to show you, just because thumbs forward, maybe thumbs crossed or whatever is better, and this is why. And that's where you really, like when that light bulb snaps, that's kind of the fun of training too.
Absolutely.
Is those training epiphanies where you're like, man, I've been doing this for the last 30 years this way, and this guy just showed me that I've wasted so much time.
Yeah. And as an instructor, I will tell you one of the greatest thrills in my life is seeing that student's light bulb come on.
That I've done that myself, teaching some of those red dot classes or whatever, and you see them where you're like, do this, and they go bink, and it just happens. All you can do is smile. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for this month. Obviously, we talked a lot about training. If you want to get yourself some of that training, some of that coveted Will training, you can do that at www.wilshiregun.com/training. On that page, you'll see a calendar. It's got all the dates, times for all of those classes. Scroll down below that. You can pick individual classes. Again, dates, times, all that kind of stuff. Descriptions. It'll tell you basically everything you want to know about them. What's needed, all that good stuff. So the OC classes, I know some of you are super excited to get signed up for those. Those are coming up in November. I don't have a super hard date just yet, but again, that'll be on the calendar. On training, it'll also go out in the training email. So
I'm very suspicious
of
that some of those pepper spray classes are going to land on Friday evenings in November.
Sounds kind of ominous.
I'm just suspicious. If you were looking for something different to do on a date night, come out, have some dinner, listen to me run at the mouth, spray me with some stuff, and go home.
Sounds like a good time. So Fridays and Novembers, guys. Hard dates will be up here soon. But any questions, obviously you can send us an email at ishoot@wilshiregun.com. Other than that, we'll see you next month.